item number 11, which again is one that we have put off because other issues have overtaken us. I'd like to invite the team to present the low carbon strategy to us. Low carbon people? That, okay, thank you. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Right, I've had Councillor Filipaina and Councillor Cooper ask that they move and second this, and I think that's fine. So, thank you, Councillor.
Tēnā koe e te tiamana, tēnā koutou ngā mema komiti, ko John Moro Takongoa, and we're here to talk about climate change, I think quite briefly given the stamina required for some of these meetings. So we'll just kind of quickly launch into it. The big picture here is that Low Carbon Auckland was launched in 2014, and in that, which a lot of you around the table agreed, you agreed a 4-year update. And a significant review and update by this year. And so that's what we're going to briefly discuss with you right now. Do we have copies of the... What we could do is actually just circulate the most recent annual update, which gives you a good understanding of how we've been able to achieve thus far our commitment to reduce emissions by 40% by 2040. Low Carbon Auckland is that 30-year pathway and 10-year action plan to do that. We have 5 transformation areas, which you could read up there, including transport, energy, waste, built environment, and natural carbon assets. And this here, which we will quickly pass around, can give you a sense of the accomplishments over the last 3 or 4 years. However, given a whole raft of new information, you can see Mayor Goff and Penny Hulse up there, Councillor Hulse up there, and a video on climate impacts to Auckland that we commissioned recently for NIWA to do, given change at the international level with the Paris Agreement, given the aspirations of our current government for a zero carbon bill. Fundamentally, this world of climate change has changed, and if you look out the window, you might also get a little bit of an emphasis on that, given the raft of weather coming our way at higher frequencies and the impacts on things like our infrastructure. So the upshot here is that a change in approach is necessary. A lot of our actions are a bit tired or completed, and now gives us a chance to reorient, reprioritize, and take an integrated approach to how we want to deal with climate change as a city.
Tēnā koutou katoa. So if we go to the next slide.
Oh, sorry.
So the 3 options we're presenting to committee today are detailed in the paper, so I won't go into huge detail here, conscious of time. But the 3 options are basically to maintain the status quo. Low Carbon Auckland is coming to the natural end of its life, essentially, so it would end this year, and we wouldn't develop an adaptation strategy. The other one is the current commitment we have as council, which is to review and update Low Carbon Auckland this year and develop a climate adaptation strategy this year as well. And the proposal that we're recommending to you today is that we integrate those to develop a more coherent climate action plan, reduce duplication and confusion, and also enable better opportunities to deliver multiple outcomes, some of which we've highlighted there today. So we just wanted to provide a little bit of context of where it fits in. Obviously, we have the Auckland Plan refresh. This action plan would seek to deliver on the directions that are being developed through that refresh. And also, it's not going to stand alone. We're working very closely with officers who work in these areas highlighted here and many others as well to make sure that we're delivering on those plans and strategies as well, and really looking to unlock all of the opportunities of working closely and coherently across the council family. And we just wanted to highlight, this is really the first step in the discussion and in the process. We're seeking to get the recommendation to take this approach, but throughout the year and as we develop the plan, we're proposing multiple touch points with committee, whether through workshops or through the chair and deputy chair, including areas such as the other recommendation about the establishment of an independent advisory group, as the zero carbon bill comes online from central government, and at various touch points throughout the process through to the final draft. So in the interest of time, that was a very quick tour through the presentation. Obviously, any questions?
Questions or comments? Councillor Walker.
I'll just make some comments. Discuss these with the officers. I don't have an issue with the integration of mitigation, that is preventing emissions, with adaptation, that is how do you adapt to what's going on. Having said that, I've got some very real concerns, particularly as it goes to the process, and that is essentially a process where it looks like it's the council that effectively prioritises things, determines where budgets and the like are, and the real danger is that much of what needs to happen in both mitigation and adaptation is actually outside of council, and certainly what has happened since the low carbon plan was put in place, very little has happened on the part of council in encouraging things outside of council. And if we look at what has happened inside of council, also, frankly, we haven't walked the talk. I do not have any issue with action identification and prioritisation when it comes to what happens inside of council, because we have budget oversight over that, and we may decide to put more emphasis on doing this or doing that. But applying that to the community effectively puts out a message, well, we know best. You, somebody in the community that wants to do something and may think that that is important, may well take it that it doesn't rate. So you effectively disempower. And I can't emphasise enough that it needs to be a strategy for Auckland, not just council. So I've got real concerns around the approach, if it's going to limit stuff, prioritise stuff, because what happens in council is we limit everything according to budget, pretty much. It's budget that's driving us. It's budget that caused us to have a zero budget for implementation since the low carbon action plan came into place. Zero budget, budget driven. So that needs to change inside of council, and I guess what I'm emphasising is we should not be stopping what needs to happen in the community. The other concern that I've got around any advisory group is it needs to be a ginger group, because I'll repeat again, we've been incredibly slack. So the last thing you want to do is just appoint some yes people, if we're appointing, and I don't know how we'd even go about doing that. So they're the comments that I've made, Madam Chair. As I say, I don't have a problem with integration. I've got a huge problem with the budget, 140 grand, which is absolutely pathetic for something that should be right up there. So we'll wait and see. Maybe more waiting than seeing.
I think there's a little bit of consternation about the ginger group. This is not a racially biased group. You are, it's a term for a group of people who will sort of take who'll be out there challenging and who'll ginger things up. So I know, ginger people of the world unite. I'm not too sure about the questions in there, Councillor. I think that's probably a wider discussion with our team, but I know they are achieving a huge amount. Our challenge is actually getting some of that known, understood, and out there in the real world, and this is our opportunity to do that. Councillor Filipaina.
Thank you, Chair, and obviously, thank you to the staff. The two relevant paragraphs for me in regards to it, and this is why I wanted to get it moved, and why Councillor Cooper seconded, was 7 and 8, because it is we're only facilitating, but we're actually going out to our community, and not only the public, but we're also going out to experts. So I'm heartened by that. I'm also heartened around the independent advisory group, because I agree with Councillor Walker in regards to getting the people who know on there, and it's going to be an independent advisory group. So look, I just look forward to us doing something concrete now, and instead of saying 2014, you know, please release me, Engelbert Humperdinck, but you know, so look, let me, no, I won't. But look, I just look forward to the work being done now with our community. Kia ora.
Thank you, Ralph. Councillor Newman.
One question, maybe two. So with the, I mean, it talks about the independent advisory group. Is there no advisory group that informs government that we can use or leverage off? I mean, is this like is this the first such group, or are there other groups out? I mean, I'm not an expert in this sort of space, so can you give me clarity as to whether we are starting something completely new, or building on something that already exists, or adding to or subtract? What is this that's different from what's already out there?
Through the chair, my first cut at that at the high level is that we don't necessarily want a complex governance structure. We want to use parts that are effective and help us achieve what we want to do. There is a bit of a mirror composition at the national level with a group that will be the Climate Commission to review government's direction and sort of check and challenge their approach. We've had preliminary conversations with how to nest that into the larger national picture so that we can work together in that. There might be perhaps a representative who serves on both and can provide some synergy between what's happening at the New Zealand level versus what's happening here.
So what you're proposing is sort of like the Auckland version of the Climate Commission? Or?
I'm making a connection. I'm not proposing that that's actually the actual function of it, but the roles in terms of checking and challenging, providing continuity through political cycles, and giving it a robust evidence-based approach is quite similar.
Chair, follow up for me. I listened to what the Mayor said before, and I agreed. I mean, he rolled out a suite of things that this council has been doing, will be doing, supporting electrification of Rauapukekohe, PT investment, electric vehicle fleet, planting trees, etc., etc. Very, very valuable things that we're doing, which seem to me to contribute to these outcomes. So you're, in addition to that, or, I mean, are you sponsoring any of this, or are you just, I'm not quite sure where you fit into the matrix of things that we're doing beyond a proposal for the group to provide advice to whom, I'm not sure, and how that relates to the existing work that we are doing and the new work that we will be doing is unclear too.
Okay, through the chair, I guess one critical piece of information is the background to all of this, and that despite some pretty robust efforts at reducing emissions, our overall emissions are actually going the wrong direction. So one might surmise that the approach we've taken either isn't good enough or isn't working, hence us looking for policy direction from this body to reassess how to actually be effective in the goals that we've set out for ourselves.
Will this group that is being constituted have the ability to recalibrate policy decisions that may otherwise be moving us in the wrong direction to require us to move in the right direction?
Sorry, I might have misspoken. When I said this group, I actually meant this body and decision makers here, yes. And you, I believe, have that power to do so.
Kia ora koutou. I was just looking, have you developed any terms of references for this independent advisory group? And if so, is Māori participation on that group?
Do you want to take that one, or should
We have started to draft the terms of reference, and absolutely, for Māori representation. We've had some initial scoping discussions with people, but obviously we wanted to get the resolution from committee to establish the group before we actually go any further. And so the terms of reference, as the recommendation, will be worked on further with the chair and the deputy chair, along with the membership of the group. But yes, absolutely, for representation.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. It's just noting because the substantial land holdings that iwi have now and the climate's affecting their land holdings, especially in coastal areas. So yeah, that's good to hear. Thank you.
On that, we were going to add the chair of planning in the mayoral office into the looking at the membership and some of the wider discussion around that group, and we could add the IMSB. I think it's entirely legitimate to do that. Mayor Goff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I spoke to this in the public input section, but I just wanted to add one thing that I have done recently for the information of councillors, and that is to look again at our letter of expectations to our CCOs and to realise that we haven't picked up on the need to direct CCOs to take account of climate change as one of the key issues of our time. And last week to write to every chair of each CCO body asking that they address climate change as an implicit part of their planning and operational processes, and also to write to the chair of AT because of the fact that transport is 40% of our global emissions, drawing his attention to the signing up to the C40 fossil fuel free streets declaration. I had a conversation with Auckland Transport before we did that, but making sure that our key operating arms are all aware and signed up to the need to do what we need to do in order to address climate change. So I particularly was prompted to say that in response to Wayne Walker's comments, because it's not a case of not doing anything. It is a case now of working with our CCOs, but also aligning ourselves to the policies that are being implemented by the new Minister of Climate Change.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I think we're all delighted, given the impact of transport on climate change, the fact that the government have moved away from their number one outcome for transport being the movement of freight to, hold the front page, the integration of land use and transport planning. It's fairly outrageous stuff, but kind of, it's probably planning 101. And they also focus on placemaking in their transport strategy, which is extraordinary. Councillor Walker.
Just in terms of some sort of group and oversight, Madam Chair, as Mr. Morrow mentioned, things are developing. So there is going to be a climate commission, one would hope, in fairly short order. The Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment is taking an active role in this area. We're a member of ICLEI, and we can certainly get advice from them in terms of how we benchmark against other cities across a whole range of criteria. We're signed up to the Covenant of Mayors that requires us to do various things. We're also engaged in C40. So my concern is that we don't jump in very quickly and put something in place that will rapidly be superseded and may not be well synchronised to a number of the things and memberships that we're already part of and will increasingly be part of. And I also make the observation that Local Government New Zealand is doing something in this area. So I've got a real concern that there's not much to substantiate some of this stuff. I could be asking a lot of questions and making a lot of suggestions, but I'm not going to do that right now. I just think that things need to be thought through, because the last thing you want to do is do what we did before, and we appoint a steering group and we appoint people to collaborate with us, and then we don't support the process and people get very disenchanted with us. And that's our existing track record to date. So I'm concerned that we need to be pretty genuine and sustainable and long-term around how we do things.
Okay, fair enough. John, last word to you, and then I think we'll put the recommendation.
Sorry, I acknowledge the councillor's concerns, and that's top of our list for things we want to avoid, and that's why we've started preliminary, kind of we're holding up for this decision from you all on this, but we've started talking with some of those groups you mentioned, LGNZ, C40, about how we can leverage their resource to do the work and actually work together on what is pretty much a mutual aim. So we'll do our absolute best to actually coordinate and not duplicate efforts and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Great.
All right, that was going to be the last word. Last word, Councillor Darby, then we'll do the recommendation.
Yeah, look, thank you, and thanks to John and his whole team for this work, and Chair, for you being the chair of this committee, leading it as well. We had a very big and very important item on our agenda, the curry dieback, and a lot of interest and a lot of heat and a lot of discussion, and good outcome, I think, too. But in some ways, and it's difficult to say it, but it pales in comparison to the challenges here in how we are going to address this year, the next years, decades ahead, and it'll be 100 years of addressing climate change, because that's such, imagine just 1,000 or 10,000 curry dieback issues coming at us. That's really what it's about. We can't fathom the enormity of this at the moment, and as I've said before, there's just so many international agencies who say, be it health or economics or social, this is the biggest issue facing mankind. So I hear what Councillor Walker's saying about not addressing things. I'm a little bit confused when Councillor Walker says, but don't jump too quickly and let others do it first before we do it. Now, I think the time has come, and the Mayor has signalled, as he has in the supplementary letter regarding the LOEs, letters of expectation to our CCOs, that this is a big, big issue, and it has to be grabbed by the scruff of the neck, and it has to be real in everything we do now. And it is. It's coming from the Mayor, it's coming hopefully from all of us. So we cannot absolve responsibility any longer to any other entity. It has to be hinged right back to us, and we will continue to work with others. Thank you, John. Thank you, Chair. Aye.
What's he doing on my side? What's he doing on my side?
We'll be asking that same question later, because I'm buggered if I can understand that. Okay.
The brothers.